Well, chain restaurants used to dominate around the country. They were a fun place to grab a meal at an affordable price.
Yeah, but recently, many are struggling, even going out of business, as Arthur Chan reports. Inflation, high labor costs, and changing tastes are all playing a part.
A restaurant chain on this list closed 100 locations in a single month. Not a single announcement. Not a restructuring plan. Another chain on this list spent $1.5 billion of its own money buying the buildings it operated in, sold them to a private equity firm, and then paid rent on those same buildings until the math made bankruptcy inevitable. And 6 restaurant chains at the end of this list are not just surviving what is killing everyone above them. They are taking the customers, the loyalty, and the market share that the dying chains are leaving behind. Keep a tight grip on your wallet. Let's go. Number 6. Red Lobster. Red Lobster's collapse is the most instructive restaurant bankruptcy in recent American history. And most people still do not understand what actually happened. The story most people know is the endless shrimp disaster, the promotion that reportedly cost $11 million in a single quarter, the bankruptcy filing in May 2024, the closure of over 100 locations within months. That is the symptom. Here is the disease. In 2014, Golden Gate Capital acquired Red Lobster and immediately executed a sale-leaseback transaction on approximately 500 restaurant properties. They sold the buildings Red Lobster operated in, pocketed $1.5 billion, then forced Red Lobster to pay rent on the buildings it used to own outright. Red Lobster went from asset-rich to cash-strapped in a single transaction engineered specifically to benefit Golden Gate Capital before anyone outside the boardroom understood what had been done. Thai Union, the industrial seafood conglomerate, subsequently became a major shareholder and primary supplier simultaneously. When your biggest shareholder is also selling you the shrimp, the incentive to run a shrimp promotion that moves maximum volume regardless of profitability becomes easy to understand. The new ownership group that acquired the brand out of bankruptcy has announced intentions to rebuild and reposition. Those announcements are structurally identical to the announcements made by every distressed restaurant brand acquisition before its final contraction. The market position Red Lobster occupied, affordable seafood celebration dining at prices working families could access for birthdays and anniversaries, no longer exists at the price points the company needs to charge to sustain operations. That is not a turnaround problem. That is an identity problem. And identity problems do not resolve through press releases from new ownership groups. A former Red Lobster general manager in Florida described the final weeks to a local news crew. "We were a quarter full on a Saturday night in December. That used to be our busiest night of the year. The regulars stopped coming years ago. I think they could feel it ending before we could admit it." Golden Gate Capital extracted $1.5 billion. The server who called her regulars personally to tell them the doors were closing received nothing. The chain at number 5 went through a different kind of private equity extraction. One that was quieter, slower, and targeted the specific emotional loyalty of a customer base that trusted the brand with something more personal than a dinner reservation. Number 5. TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays filed for bankruptcy in November 2024. The private equity firm controlling the chain was Tri-Artisan Capital Advisors. Tri-Artisan's strategy was textbook extraction. Happy hour scaled back. Portions reduced. Prices raised. Complimentary extras eliminated one by one. A Jack Daniel's ribs entree that cost $16 crossed $24. The things that made TGI Fridays worth visiting were systematically removed to protect margin targets that Tri-Artisan needed to hit before their exit. A chain that built its identity around the working-class Friday night celebration repriced itself out of the working class. Tri-Artisan got their exit. The 9-year server got a closure notice 2 weeks before Christmas 2024. The happy hour program, which was one of the chain's most historically effective traffic drivers, was scaled back repeatedly through 2023 and 2024 in ways that removed the specific reason many customers chose TGI Fridays over comparable alternatives. When the affordable drinks and reduced-price appetizers that justified the visit disappeared, the remaining reason to choose a mid-priced casual dining chain over faster, cheaper, or better alternatives became impossible to articulate. She described watching the decline in a statement to a local food publication. "Every year something disappeared. Every year the prices went up. By the end, we were a mid-tier restaurant charging premium prices for food nobody recognized from the original menu. Try Artisan took the money. The customer stopped recognizing the menu. The server lost her job. That is the TGI Fridays collapse story told in 3 sentences. What number 4 is going through involves no private equity firm, no sale leaseback, no extraction scheme. Just a publicly traded company that raised prices past the breaking point and then acted surprised when the people who could not afford the new prices stopped coming. If watching publicly traded restaurant companies close the locations that meant the most to the people who could least afford to lose them makes your blood boil, subscribe to this channel right now. We document every closure, every extraction scheme, and every earnings call where a CEO uses the word headwinds to describe a dining room full of empty tables. Done? Good. Number 4. Applebee's is owned by Dine Brands Global, publicly traded, answering to shareholders who want margin expansion every quarter. The 2 for $20 promotion defined Applebee's for 15 years. 2 entrees, 1 appetizer, $20. It was the reason millions of families chose Applebee's over every competing option in their price range. Dine Brands quietly retired it. The same meal now costs $32 in most markets. No announcement, no explanation. Just a menu that no longer had the deal that justified the visit. Dine Brands described the departing customers in their own SEC filings as economically cautious consumers. That is corporate language for people who noticed they were being charged $30 for a meal that used to cost $20 and made a rational decision. Franchisee confidence in the brand's recovery has worn visibly thin. Several franchise groups have been publicly assessed by lenders as carrying elevated risk on their Applebee's portfolios. A signal that the financial community has reached conclusions about the brand's trajectory that corporate communications have not yet acknowledged. A multi-unit Applebee's franchisee in Ohio told a trade publication what Dine Brands' investor relations team never would. I signed up to run a value brand. Dine Brands turned it into a mid-tier restaurant without telling the franchisees or the customers. We are the ones paying for that decision. Dine Brands collected the royalties. The franchisee absorbed the empty dining room. The customers built new habits without Applebee's. The chain at number 3 made a similar mistake, but compounded it with a public announcement so tone-deaf that it became a national news story for weeks. Number 3. Wendy's made the single most self-destructive pricing announcement in the history of American fast food. In early 2024, the Wendy's CEO got on an earnings call with investors and announced that the company was investing tens of millions of dollars in digital menu boards capable of dynamic pricing. Surge pricing at a fast food restaurant. The idea was to charge more for a bacon cheeseburger at noon, when you are hungriest and have the least time to go somewhere else, than at 3 p.m. when the rush has passed. The internet responded with total fury. Within 48 hours, boycott hashtags accumulated tens of millions of impressions. Within a week, Wendy's corporate was in full retreat. They released statements claiming the technology was designed to offer discounts during slow periods rather than raise prices during busy ones. Nobody believed them. You do not invest tens of millions of dollars in AI-powered menu boards to give out discounts. Wendy's had revealed the corporate desire, panicked at the public response, and then asked customers to accept a reframing that contradicted the original announcement. The Wendy's company is publicly traded on the NASDAQ. The surge pricing ambition was not a rogue executive's idea. It was a shareholder value strategy that somebody in a boardroom approved before the CEO put it on an earnings call. A Wendy's franchise operator in Texas, speaking anonymously to a trade publication, described the aftermath on his locations. Corporate created a national news story about charging customers more money when they are hungriest. I spent 6 months answering for it at my counter. Customers brought it up while ordering. People do not forget. People do not forget. The Wendy's company has been managing the consequences of that earnings call ever since. Traffic data through 2025 shows that the customers who left during the surge pricing controversy have not returned in meaningful numbers. Each promotion Wendy's has launched since has generated a short-term traffic bump, followed by a return to the declining baseline. The announcement revealed what the company wanted to do. Customers heard it clearly, and they have been acting on what they heard ever since. What number 2 is going through involves a more sustained and more complete collapse. One that has been playing out across years, not months. And the private equity fingerprints on it are documented in court filings that most of the affected employees never had the resources to read. Number 2. Denny's used to be the restaurant that never closed. Open 24 hours, every day, every holiday. Every night your family needed somewhere to go at 2 a.m. and had nowhere else. That promise built a loyal customer base over 7 decades. Denny's, publicly traded on the NASDAQ, decided that loyal customer base was a revenue optimization opportunity. A breakfast combo that cost $9 in 2022 costs $14 today in most markets. The Grand Slam, the brand's most iconic menu item, crossed $12 in many locations. Denny's has closed over 150 locations through 2025 and into 2026. The executives have publicly acknowledged that further closures are being evaluated. The 24-hour format, once Denny's most distinctive competitive advantage, has become an operational cost burden in markets where late-night customer volumes no longer justify the staffing, utilities, and security costs of keeping a full restaurant open through the overnight hours. Several locations have quietly scaled back to limited overnight hours rather than full 24-hour service, a middle step that frequently precedes a permanent closure announcement once the reduced hours fail to stabilize the location's numbers. The demographic data underneath Denny's declining numbers tells the longer story. The chain's most loyal customers are older Americans who built a habit around the 24-hour format and the affordable price point. Both of those things are disappearing simultaneously. The customers are not being replaced by younger diners. The habit is simply ending. A regular customer in rural Tennessee, who had eaten at the same Denny's every Sunday morning for 11 years, wrote in a community forum after his location closed, "That place was open the night my father died. It was open the morning my daughter was born. Now it is a vacant lot and the nearest one is 40 minutes away. Open the night his father died. Closed to protect a margin percentage." Number 1. Boston Market. Boston Market's disappearance is already largely complete, but the way it happened deserves to be documented specifically because it involves a level of operational dysfunction and worker abandonment that goes beyond anything on this list. The chain went from over 450 locations at its peak to fewer than 30 by 2024. Not through a structured bankruptcy, not through an announced closure program, through abandonment. Locations simply stopped operating overnight. Employees arrived for shifts at dark, locked restaurants with no communication from corporate, no notice, no final paycheck for weeks in many cases. The owner who presided over this collapse was Jay Pandya, who acquired Boston Market and proceeded to demonstrate what total operational disregard for employees looks like when there are no consequences. State labor departments in New Jersey and California separately pursued the company for hundreds of thousands of dollars in unpaid wage claims. The legal pressure compounded the operational collapse and made it nearly impossible for the brand to secure the financing it would have needed to stabilize its remaining locations. The legal liability and the operational dysfunction reinforced each other in a spiral that no management change could have interrupted by the time it became visible from the outside. The rotisserie chicken concept that Boston Market built its identity around, which was genuinely novel and genuinely good when the chain launched in the early 1990s, is now available in better form at Costco, at H-E-B, and at grocery store prepared food sections nationwide. The product category survived. Boston Market did not protect its position within it. Now here are 6 restaurant chains that made completely different decisions. 6 that are not closing, not restructuring, not describing an empty dining room as a strategic opportunity. 6 that are actually winning in the environment that is killing everything above them. Survivor number 6, Chili's. Chili's did the thing every chain on the worst list refused to do. It looked at the data, identified the specific price point where customers were being lost, and moved the price back below that point rather than defending the margin. While every casual dining chain above was raising prices, Chili's moved in the other direction in 2024 and 2025. The $10.99 three-item lunch deal. The aggressively priced burger and drink combo. Real value at a price point that the chains above this entry had abandoned. Traffic surged. Chili's reported same-store sales increases among the strongest in the entire casual dining segment. Market share gained directly from Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and Denny's, as those chains raised prices and Chili's kept them honest. Chili's leadership was notably public about the strategy. Executives stated directly in earnings calls that value pricing was a long-term traffic investment rather than a short-term promotional gimmick. That framing is the opposite of the language used by every chain on the worst list. A customer in Ohio who switched from Applebee's to Chili's after the 2 for $20 retirement wrote in a review, "Same kind of food, lower price, bigger portion." I felt like someone finally listened. I have not been back to Applebee's since. Chili's is proof that the customers did not stop going out. They stopped going to the places that stopped caring whether they came back. The survivor at number 5 built its recovery on something even more fundamental than price. It built it on a quality standard so specific and so consistently maintained that it has become the benchmark against which every other chain in its category is measured. Survivor number 5, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A generates more revenue per location than any other restaurant chain in America, across every category, every cuisine, every price point. That figure is not a product of marketing spend or brand momentum. It is the direct result of an operational model built around food safety, supplier transparency, and customer experience consistency that every chain on the worst list has never come close to matching. Chick-fil-A conducts unannounced third-party audits of every supplier and every location. The chicken is sourced through a closed supply chain of personally vetted farms. The cooking-to-order protocol eliminates the heat lamp holding problem that degrades quality and creates safety risk at most competitors. Health inspections consistently return scores among the highest in the quick service category. No private equity firm is extracting value from this brand. No Wall Street shareholder is pressuring management to rebid the chicken supplier for cost reduction. No quarterly earnings call is where the decision gets made about whether to maintain the food safety audit or protect the margin. The single-operator franchise model keeps accountability direct and personal in a way that multi-unit franchise structures cannot replicate. An operator who is present in their own restaurant every day makes different decisions than a regional manager overseeing a portfolio of locations from a distance. Those different decisions accumulate into the consistency gap that separates Chick-fil-A from every struggling brand on the worst list. A regular customer in Georgia who has been eating at the same Chick-fil-A location for over 15 years wrote in a review, "Same quality every single time. I cannot say that about anywhere else I eat regularly. Not one other place." Not one other place. The survivor at number 4 is doing something that Chick-fil-A has not yet done. It is growing at a pace that suggests it will be one of the dominant names in its category within 5 years. And it is doing it from a founding story so specific and so far from a corporate boardroom that it belongs in a different conversation from every chain on the worst list. Survivor number 4, Dave's Hot Chicken. Dave's Hot Chicken started as a parking lot pop-up in East Hollywood in 2017. $900 in startup capital, a recipe, a heat-level scale, a parking lot. By 2026, Dave's has grown to several hundred locations and a growth trajectory that has made it one of the fastest expanding chicken chains in American quick service history. The product is Nashville hot chicken served at heat levels, ranging from no spice through a progression that tops out at Reaper, which is hot enough to require a signed customer waiver. The heat level structure is not a gimmick. It is a product architecture that creates repeat visits, social media content, and word-of-mouth advertising that no marketing budget can manufacture. But what makes Dave's growth sustainable rather than trend-dependent is the operational discipline behind it. The supply chain and training infrastructure were built for scale at an earlier stage than most growing chains invest in those systems. Health inspection records across Dave's locations in multiple states show compliance rates that are impressive for a brand at this stage of expansion. No private equity firm running an extraction playbook is behind this growth. No sale-leaseback has hollowed out the balance sheet. No public shareholder is asking why the safety audit costs more than last quarter. a customer in Chicago, visiting a Dave's location for the first time after hearing about it from 3 separate people, wrote in a review, "I understand now why everyone kept telling me about this place. I've already told 4 people since I left. Already told 4 people since leaving. That is word-of-mouth velocity that TGI Fridays' entire marketing budget could not generate in 2024. The survivor at number 3 has built something even more durable than word-of-mouth velocity. It has built a brand on a transparency commitment so specific that it makes the food with integrity language that Chipotle has been selling for years look like what it is. Marketing. Survivor number 3. Raising Cane's. Raising Cane's operates one of the simplest menus in the quick service industry. Chicken fingers, crinkle-cut fries, coleslaw, Texas toast, dipping sauce. That is the entire menu. The simplicity is not a marketing gimmick. It is a food safety architecture. A kitchen that makes 5 things can train every staff member thoroughly on every item. Cross-contamination risk is minimized because the ingredient list is short. Temperature control protocols are simple enough to be followed consistently, even during a rush. Raising Cane's sources chicken from a limited number of suppliers subject to regular third-party auditing. The company has grown rapidly through 2024 and 2025 while maintaining health inspection scores that consistently rank among the best in the quick-service chicken segment. Rapid growth is typically the moment when food safety standards erode as operational pressure outpaces training capacity. Raising Cane's has managed that growth without the safety degradation that has affected competitors at similar growth stages. The reason is the menu. Scaling 5 items across 1,000 locations is a fundamentally simpler operational problem than scaling 50 items across the same footprint. Raising Cane's built its entire growth strategy around exploiting that simplicity rather than fighting against it. No private equity extraction. No sale-leaseback on the restaurant properties. No publicly traded shareholder demanding that the chicken supplier be rebid for cost reduction. Just a focused operation doing 5 things correctly, at scale, every day. Hit the like button right now if you think a restaurant that can do 5 things perfectly is worth more than a restaurant that does 50 things badly. Because the next 2 survivors prove that the most important thing a restaurant can do in 2026 is exactly that. Done? Good. Survivor number 2. In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out has never experienced a confirmed widespread foodborne illness outbreak linked to its supply chain in over 75 years of continuous operation. 75 years. Never filed for bankruptcy. Never gone through a leadership crisis requiring a restructuring announcement. Never raised prices so aggressively that its core customers publicly organized against it. Never been the subject of a viral receipt showing a burger that cost $19. Every fact in that paragraph describes something that has happened to at least one chain on the worst list. None of them have happened to In-N-Out. In-N-Out is privately held. The founding family answers to no shareholder. No earnings call. No private equity firm that paid $10 billion for the brand and needs a return multiple. That structure removes the single most powerful force driving every decision that is killing the chains above it. The pressure to extract short-term financial performance at the expense of long-term customer trust. The supply chain runs from regional ranches personally audited by company representatives to the restaurant in under 1 week. The industry average is measured in months. The menu is deliberately minimal. 5 core items. That allows the kitchen to be trained, staffed, and managed with a thoroughness that multi-item menus cannot support. In-N-Out's employee compensation model has consistently exceeded the regional fast food average for years, producing retention rates that make the institutional knowledge problem plaguing high-turnover competitors structurally irrelevant. Staff who stay for years rather than weeks internalize safe food handling as habit rather than rule. That difference shows up in inspection records, customer experience consistency, and the 0 widespread outbreak record that no competitor has come close to matching. A longtime In-N-Out customer in California wrote in a review, "I brought my daughter here for the first time last month. She is 7. She asked if we could come back tomorrow. That is the whole story. That is the whole story." What the final survivor has built takes everything In-N-Out represents and applies it to a regional context so specific, so rooted in place and practice that no private equity firm could acquire it even if it tried. Because what makes it work cannot be written into a franchise agreement. It can only be lived. Survivor number 1. Culver's sources beef from regional farms personally audited by company leadership. Not third-party intermediaries alone. Company leadership. The people whose names are on the building. The farms are named. The sourcing information is published. Any customer who wants to know where the beef in their Butterburger came from can find out before they order it. No other major quick-service chain in the country offers that combination of named farms, personal audit relationships, and published supply chain documentation. Culver's pays above-market prices for beef from suppliers with above-market safety and quality standards. That is a deliberate business model choice, not a marketing strategy, a procurement philosophy that has been maintained across the company's entire operational history without a single private equity acquisition resetting the supplier relationship to commodity purchasing. Culver's is privately held. No quarterly earnings call. No private equity firm loading the company with acquisition debt. No publicly traded board weighing the cost of sourcing transparency against the benefit of switching to a cheaper commodity supplier. Just a Wisconsin family that decided in 1984 what kind of restaurant they wanted to run and has maintained that decision through 4 decades of expansion without surrendering the standards that made the first location worth visiting. Health inspection records for Culver's locations consistently show some of the lowest critical violation rates in the quick-service burger category. The Butterburger is made from fresh, never-frozen beef. The concrete mixers are made with real ice cream. The sourcing is published, verifiable, and accurate. A Culver's regular in Wisconsin who grew up in the state where the chain was founded wrote in a review, "I have eaten hundreds of Butterburgers in my life. I have never once questioned what was in one. I cannot say that about any other burger chain I have ever visited. Never once questioned what was in one." Now, compare that sentence to the experience of eating at any chain on the worst list. The Red Lobster customer who trusted that the seafood was worth the price the night before the location closed. The TGI Fridays regular who ordered the Jack Daniel's ribs without knowing Tri-Artisan Capital had already scheduled the exit. The Applebee's family who showed up for 2 for $20 and found a $30 menu. The Wendy's customer who heard a CEO announce surge pricing on the news and stopped going. The Denny's regular who ate at the same location every Sunday for 11 years and drove past a vacant lot where it used to be. The Boston Market employee who showed up to a locked door and a final paycheck that did not arrive for weeks. All of them trusted a brand. All of them were betrayed by the corporate structure behind that brand. Culver's has never done that. Not once. Not in 4 decades. Not to a single customer who drove past the sourcing page and found a farm name that matched what was on the plate. The chains shutting down fast all made the same choice. They chose the quarterly return over the customer. They chose the private equity exit over the employee. They chose the margin expansion over the meal. Culver's made a different choice in 1984. And in 2026, with everything around it contracting, that choice is still producing the same result it always has. A customer who never once questioned what was in the burger. That is what 40 years of doing it right looks like. Thanks for watching. If this list hit closer to home than you expected, drop a comment below and tell us which closure affected you personally. Which restaurant on the worst list was yours? And if you want to see which grocery chains are running the exact same private equity extraction playbook as the worst restaurants on this list, that video is on your screen right now. Click the video on the left. I will meet you there.